Hey, it's Pete Mundo. Before the podcast starts, could you do us a favor at KCMO? We don't ask you for much outside of supporting our sponsors and advertisers. Could you leave us a 5-star rating and review? Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Helps us a lot. We so appreciate you doing that. Oh, come on. Even if you hate golf like John, you had to love that moment yesterday. Rory McIlroy walking off the 18th hole at the Masters, winning his first green jacket, his first major in 11 years. Completing the career Grand Slam, which is when you've won every single major tournament, hugging his daughter, crying for about 7 minutes straight. Come on, that's not a golf story. How can you not be into that, Mark?
My wife did not watch 1 second of golf. She walked upstairs right as he made the final putt to win it, and she started crying.
Oh, my gosh. What was she drinking yesterday?
She wasn't drinking anything too crazy, but she gets emotional about that kind of stuff.
Oh, come on. How can you not love that yesterday? The guy almost chokes away the one major he has never won in his career, the green jacket. He's trying to become only the 6th person in golf history to have won every major during his career. Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods. Arnold Palmer never did it. Phil Mickelson could not win a U.S. Open. Rory McIlroy, for over a decade, has been waiting for this moment. Many thought it would never come. And frankly, there were moments yesterday when he's dunking a chip shot in the water on 13. He's putting it in the sand trap on 18. He's missing a putt on, I guess it was the eagle putt on 15. And then the par putt on 18, and then he goes to a playoff, and you say, it's not going to happen. It's all in his head. It's all between the ears. He can't get it done. And he ends up winning the Masters on the first playoff hole. And he just collapses in his own tears. That was not just a golf moment, not just a sports moment. That was a great life moment yesterday, if you care about just human beings having awesome success on the world stage and getting to celebrate it in a very minor way.
The long journey is over. McIlroy has his masterpiece.
When you watch somebody have that kind of emotion, listen, we can't relate to it doing what we do every day. What he must be experiencing and feeling in that moment. But there's a small part of you, I think a small part of all of us, that can at least somewhat relate to having a great moment, whether it's personally, professionally, being incredibly proud of something that you've accomplished in your life, and then getting to share it with those that you love, your wife, your children. Once again, there's nothing to specifically tie it to for those of us who just have normal jobs. But there is a small part of it that is relatable. And that was Rory McIlroy yesterday. When he walks off that green and he picks up his daughter and he just loses it. I mean, come on. That is the kind of thing that I don't care if you're a golf fan or not. Golf is one of the few sports that can give you a moment like that, because it's an individual sport, right? You watch somebody go through the ups and downs of a day, basically the ups and downs of a work day, trying to do something that 6 people in the history of their field have ever done. And you think it's going to happen, then you're like, it's not going to happen, and then he tries to blow the whole thing up down the home stretch until he finally wins it. You're on that roller coaster if you're watching yesterday the entire day. In the case of Mark's wife, she's not even watching it the entire day, and she's on the roller coaster by the end of it. Now, was she crying because you hit a $5 parlay to win $1,000 or no?
No, she just, the emotion of it from Rory, that was it for her. I did win the parlay from Friday, though.
You did win the parlay.
Yes.
You talked about Friday and buy, sell, hold.
That's right.
At 8:45. That was well done. Nice job there, Mark. All right, round of applause for the big guy. That was a pretty good parlay you had on your hands there. That was great.
I just had Rory finishing top 20. I should have had more foresight.
I know.
I would have won way more money.
I know. Still, that was like a $5 to win what?
85.
That's a good bet, my man.
Not too bad.
That's a good bet. Look at you.
Not enough to make the wife cry, but
she's usually crying over your losses, but now she could shed a tear or two over your wins. So I that's what golf does to you, in a way that other sports just don't do when it comes to team sports. And frankly, tennis doesn't do it for me. Golf is much more mainstream. And you also had the backdrop of the PGA Tour versus LIV, which is always a compelling theme as well. So I hope you had an outstanding weekend. Weather was great around Kansas City. It was fantastic. Little windy. Girls went 2-0 in the soccer game. So, had a game Saturday, a game Sunday afternoon. That all went well. But on the sports front, more of the Kansas City news front, I got a couple of listeners reaching out to me over the weekend saying that they had received a poll on their phones from the Royals. And this was all residents up in the Northland who sent me this. So this is, I sat there and I said, the Royals don't have any idea what they're going to do they? Not a clue. And now we have Clay County residents who are receiving polling questions about a new stadium in North KC and their opinions on a sales tax. And there was about 15 questions in this poll that got sent to some listeners up in the Northland. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, you have got to be kidding me. They are still doing this. They're supposedly 2.5 months away from making a decision. That's what John Sherman has said on this show and elsewhere about where they're going to be going forward. And the reason they put this self-imposed deadline on the table is because the Kansas Star Bond deal ends on June 30th. So that's been kind of the soft target for when both teams theoretically have to figure out what they're going to do. Now, they don't actually have to meet that deadline, but once the Kansas Star Bond deal expires, it takes away a lot of their leverage, right? In business, you want to have options. If they lose the Kansas option, then what are the Chiefs negotiating against? Themselves and the state of Missouri? The Royals are doing what? KCMO versus Clay County? You lose your options all of a sudden. So these questions, here are just one or two of the questions that Clay County residents received in the last couple of days. Here's question number 2. There is a proposal to build a new stadium for the Royals north of the river in downtown North Kansas City in Clay County. Generally, would you support or oppose this proposal? Question 3, if the Royals select downtown North Kansas City and Clay County for a new stadium, it would require up to a 0.5-cent sales tax increase in Clay County for 40 years. Knowing this, would you support or oppose a new stadium in North Kansas City? Question 4, how much have you seen, read, or heard recently about a proposed new Royal Stadium in North Kansas City and Clay County? And the questions go on and on and on from there. They are bringing back something that most of us thought was dead, a ballpark up in the Northland. But it tells me two things. The Royals are still trying to figure this out, got to believe. And also, maybe the state of Missouri is encouraging them to look up north. Maybe the state of Missouri are the ones who are basically saying, if you want our help, KCMO's not going to cut it. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that does open up Kansas City and Jackson County and the state to focus on the Chiefs. You spread the wealth, so to speak, air quotes, and move the Royals up north. But a half-penny sales tax, that's a big nut. That is a big number when you talk about funding a baseball team for the better part of 40 years. And that was the number that was rumored. This is going on 2 years ago now, that North KC was all excited about the possibility of getting the Royals up to the Northland. And it was a 0.5-cent sales tax that was talked about back then. Now, if we're still talking about a 0.5-cent sales tax, then is the state of Missouri really kicking in anything? Because the way I'm looking at it here, I'm saying, okay, we're basically back where we were in the summer of 2023. If we're back to considering the Northland as a viable option for the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, if that's the case, we're back to 2023. You need to go out and put some money on the Chiefs. Right? Seriously, it feels like that, though.
It does.
Right? Deja vu all over again.
It's just like the story that never ends. And it's not our fault. It's not your fault. Frankly, in many cases, it's not the politicians' faults. It's the teams. In this case, it's the Royals.
I'm curious about I don't understand the Port Authority thing that we have here. So I don't know if being closer to the river somehow for the Northland Park factors that in somehow as development.
That's a good question. What someone told me, and this is just what I heard about it, there are potential tax incentives the closer you are to the river through the Port Authority.
That's funny. I think of Port Authority, and I think of New York City.
Yeah, I know.
What Port Authority here?
I know.
Right? Up on Cripple Creek?
To me,
So,
you know what it feels like to me? It just feels like another government tool to help the big guy and screw the little guy.
Emphasis on tool.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, man. So we'll get more on this throughout the morning on KCMO Talk Radio. It is 6:15. Happy Monday. Glad you're starting off the week with us on 95.7 FM. Coming up, we did have near tragedy in our community over the weekend. We'll tell you what happened and why it seems like it was avoided coming up next on 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. I had a great weekend out at the Jackson County GOP Lincoln Reagan Days dinner that they host every April. Happy to be their MC on Saturday night out in Blue Springs. And a great job by Mark Alford as the keynote for the event on Saturday night. So packed house out there at the Elks. They did a tremendous job, as they always do, putting on that show. Big crowd, long night, good time. Everybody had a lot of fun, and they raised a lot of money. And there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm in Jackson County. And just keep your eye on this. Something that was teased by a local state official on Saturday night was the possibility, it's not going to happen this year, but maybe next year in the legislative session on the Missouri side of the state line, look at there potentially to be this proposal of Jackson County breaking off from Kansas City, Missouri proper, like what you have on the St. Louis side, where you have St. Louis City and you have St. Louis County. I'm not saying it's happening, but it was something that was floated out there as an idea on Saturday, and as you can imagine, was largely very well received. Now, while this was happening and while we were at this event on Saturday night, a KCPD officer nearly lost their life. And this happened after police were trying to basically do something about what is street racing out of control all over Kansas City. And this is a theme every time the weather gets nice. So investigators or officers were investigating an injury crash involving an officer at Truman Road and Main Street when an officer was assaulted at about 7 p.m. on Saturday. Police say the assault happened as the driver of an ATV attempted to avoid a deflation device set up by the officer by using a wheelie, and then struck the officer. The ATV driver then fled the scene, driving right over the officer. The KCPD officer was taken to an area hospital with serious head injuries, but that officer has since been released, thank goodness. But when this dropped on Saturday night, the reports were that this was a critical situation involving this Kansas City police officer. Now, yesterday afternoon, Mayor Lucas put out a statement on this. He said, last night, a reckless ATV driver caused injuries to a Kansas City police officer. Mayhem on our streets and continued to display the lawlessness that too many dirt bikes, stunt drivers, ATV users, racers, and others display on streets in dense areas of our city. We expect our officer to recover and pray he can return to normal service soon. Rest assured, as the weather gets warmer, serious enforcement action from KCPD, apprehension, and felony referrals to our prosecutors will follow for all those causing fear, serious injuries, and harm even to themselves on the streets of Kansas City. Vehicles are not toys, and the streets are not playgrounds for lawlessness. All have a right to enjoy our city uninterrupted by those whose actions bring harm to others. Okay, great. They're going to prosecute this stuff. That's good. It's a great first step. But this city and the prosecutors in this town, led by Melissa Johnson, have got to take this as seriously as they have in a very long time. You've got now a half decade where these people have been basically riding dirt bikes and ATVs around Kansas City and doing their street shows and whatnot, and nothing's really being done about it. You've heard from residents on this show, on local TV and elsewhere, and they just say, when is enough enough? It's long past due for the city to do everything in its power to stop these people, and they haven't really done anything about it. You had residents reacting on KCTV5 over the weekend. Here's what they said.
So anytime it warms up, you start to see more dirt bikes out, more four-wheelers out on the streets. I do see the safety issues when it becomes kind of like this cat and mouse game between the police officers and the riders themselves.
Tim Moore has lived downtown for years. He says the late-night racing isn't rare, it's routine.
Hopefully this will bring more attention to what's going on down here, because it is dangerous. Someone's going to get hit coming out of the hotels.
Now, that's a great point there at the end. If you're sitting there thinking, hey, this doesn't impact me, I don't live in Kansas City. I mean, do you leave your house? Do you go to a show down at T-Mobile? Do you go down to Power and Light for anything? This was 7 p.m. on a Saturday night. That could impact any of us walking out of a restaurant, right? This is not about being a Kansas City, Missouri resident. This is about anybody who lives in the region who may end up in Kansas City in a crowded area of downtown at some point at 7 p.m. on a Saturday night, who suddenly is worrying about some ATV driver plowing you over or some thug on a dirt bike. And call it what it is, right? Call it what it is. And I'm glad the mayor is responding like this. I do think he's taking this seriously. He knows he has to. And yes, there's a part of this too, and I know that some of you want to bring this up, that is like, well, it's too little, too late. The damage has been done in this town by a lackadaisical attitude by the politicians. You know me, I'm sympathetic to that argument. I really am. But I'm trying to not live in the past. And the mayor is going to have a press conference today, this morning, with Police Chief Stacey Graves on this issue. Now, to me, that's more for the cameras. I'll be honest. I mean, the criminals are not the ones who are like, let me check out this press conference today. Like, that's just not what they do. It's more to bring awareness to it and make sure the public knows they're on it. But now we've got to start seeing a lot of arrests happening on these type of sideshows, on the dirt bike drivers, on the ATV riders. There was an ATV rider going in the wrong direction on I-35 in broad daylight the other day. You're driving down that road right now. That could be you. So this is not a Kansas City, Missouri problem. It is a regional problem that needs to be addressed. 913-408-7957. We will get to you here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app, and the 6 at 6 coming up as well. This is a prime example of how this issue that nearly killed a KCPD officer over the weekend is not just a Kansas City, Missouri problem. You do not have to be a resident unless you are a hermit and you never leave your home in some exurban part of the community. This will have an impact on you. These sideshows that are out of control, these street racers that are out of control, and the mayor is set to host a press conference this morning with the police chief, Stacey Graves, addressing what happened on Saturday night. Thankfully, the officer is out of the hospital, but you still had a cop who was nearly killed by an ATV driver, and there still, as I understand it as of this morning, has not been an arrest in this case, which means that driver is still on the loose. Sarah's in KCK. Hey, Sarah, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's going on out by you?
Well, we've got kids on dirt bikes and ATVs, and it's been, for months, we've been calling Chief Oakley, calling the police department, asking them to be out there on these beautiful days after school, slowing down these kids on dirt bikes. They're going to get hurt, and it won't be until the dirt bikes or the ATVs, the four-wheelers, until somebody's hurt, they're actually going to do something.
You're right. And I don't want anybody to get hurt. I know you don't either. But God forbid an innocent person gets hurt by these riders on these dirt bikes and these ATVs.
God forbid is right. And then the parents are going to be mad that, their kid popped up over the hill and I hit him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be my fault. These bikes don't have lights. They don't have license plates. There's no signaling. They're riding on the sidewalks. It's just out of control. And the parents, we need to stop it at this age, grade level, elementary school, middle school, high school, so that they're not 20-something-year-olds out running in KCMO.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you're seeing this where exactly in your area?
Well, I'm out in Piper.
Mm-hmm.
It's out there off Parallel and Donahue, between K7 and 435. That's where I'm at, and I know they're running through my neighborhood on dirt bikes.
And you said they're as young as middle schoolers in some cases?
There's a fifth grader in our neighborhood who rides a dirt bike.
And he's riding it on the streets like he's a vehicle.
Like you're in your neighborhood along with the kids on bicycles and the people walking their dogs.
Is there a dirt bike? I don't know, movement's the wrong word. But now that you say it, I've seen some dirt bikes. I mean, they're like mini dirt bikes.
Yes.
But I've seen some of them in our neighborhood, too. Now, the kids I'm seeing in our neighborhood are using it like you would use a bike on the side of the road. But is there I don't know, my daughters are obviously much younger. Is there some thing going on where dirt bikes are a big thing right now for young boys?
Apparently there is, along with the ATVs.
Yeah, because I don't remember this. I mean, going back 20 years at least, I don't remember this being a thing at all.
No, I don't either.
Wow.
And I'm nearly 50, so I don't remember it being like this.
Well, I will reach out to Chief Oakman today, too, there in KCK, and just get his pulse on what's going on out your way.
Good idea.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, 913-4087-95.7 is how you join us on KCMO. That's also, of course, the text line on a Monday morning. In KCMO, it's obviously much worse because you have adults doing this stuff. You have them fleeing law enforcement and hurting cops. But you are seeing more of this stuff, it seems like, around the region. And I don't know if it's regional. I don't know if it's the thing of the moment. When I was young, it was Beanie Babies. Now it's dirt bikes, I guess. So, things come full circle, I suppose, John.
Well, I can recall when I was younger, but I lived in Martin City. It was a little more rural. It wasn't in this city, but kids had bikes, dirt bikes, and you rode them on the street, like with the bicycles. We went around the block and that kind of thing. But there was room, if you will, quote unquote, to ride them in a field. And so nobody was out doing donuts in groups in the middle of the intersection back then. I think, though, if you live out in the outskirts of the area, it might be more common to have one of those vehicles. But as to them being like downtown at 18th and Vine, I'm like, what are we doing? What's up?
Yeah, what are you doing? And then you got the cops saying, hey, stop it there. And they're trying to blow out your tires, and you're running over cops. My goodness, just ridiculous. So we will have Brad Lemon. He's the Fraternal Order of Police president, coming up at 9:05 this morning on KCMO Talk Radio, and just get his reaction. First off, find out how the cop is doing, get his thoughts on this press conference happening this morning with Mayor Lucas and Police Chief Graves, and talk about what it means for enforcement this summer in Kansas City, Missouri in particular. Now, we're obviously spending another week watching the stock market because the tariff craziness is obviously not going anywhere. This morning, what you're seeing is Dow futures up about 400 points. NASDAQ's up 300 plus. So you have the markets up ahead of the opening bell in less than 2 hours from now. Why is that? Well, over the weekend, the president exempted smartphones and computers, as well as other devices and components like semiconductors, from his new reciprocal tariffs. So that was the big news over the weekend. But then yesterday, Trump put out a Truth Social that kind of muddied the waters here. He says that no one is going to be getting off the hook. He put a post up on his Truth Social yesterday saying there was no tariff exception, not exemption. These products are subject to the existing 20% fentanyl tariffs, and they are just moving to a different tariff bucket. In a post on Truth Social, Trump promised to launch a national security trade investigation into the semiconductor sector and the whole electronics supply chain. He says we will not be held hostage by other countries, especially hostile trading nations like China. Now, I agree with everything he is attempting to do here. What no one really is clear on, though, is what exactly is getting tariffed and what exactly is not getting tariffed. And I think for businesses big and small, there has to be a little more clarity on this going forward. People are willing to be all in on what he's trying to do. I mean, I even think you could convince a lot of people who didn't vote for Donald Trump to admit that what he is attempting to do in decouple not just our economy, but the global economy from China is a worthy, worthwhile, wise thing to do. And nobody's had the stones to do it in this country because they're all worried about their next election. And God forbid the price of cheap crap from China goes up 10, 20, 30%. Oh, boy, we're going to kick people out of office for that because we've become very short-term thinkers. And I mean all of us, like voters, the politicians, the business leaders. It's all about, what are you doing for me now? And that's why we've got ourselves in this total mess. Trump's trying to think 50 and 100 years out when he's long gone. I mean, if this guy wanted to do what was in his best interest, he wouldn't bother with any of this stuff. He's actually thinking beyond himself and beyond when he is going to be on this earth. I mean, I know he got his physical over the weekend, and apparently the guy's in exceptional health, but he's not making it another 50 years, okay? I mean,
talk about a bombshell.
I'd love to be wrong about that, but he's not going to live to be 128 years old. It's not going to happen. So he's got a 50 to 100-year plan here. Hopefully, our political class across the aisle will actually move the ball forward on this long after Donald Trump is gone. So while I totally agree with what he is attempting to do here, I think having some more clarity on these tariffs in the short term will be beneficial for businesses big and small to at least understand, here's what it does to my costs. And Trump knows this as a business guy better than most politicians do. He's a businessman. You got to be able to have some foresight here when it comes to planning and costs. And right now, I don't think anybody who actually does a lot of business with that part of the world, right or wrong, they do their business there, they can tell you what exactly this is going to do to their profit margins, to their expenses, to their costs in general. They have no idea. And that's where it would behoove the administration to have one voice on this. And that one voice should be Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. If it's not going to be Trump, then it should be Scott Bessent. But there's too many people talking right now on too many different outlets with too much mixed messaging going on. And as a result, nobody really knows how to plan going forward. People will back Trump on this. I really believe that. I know the media will tell you that's not the case, but I firmly believe that a lot of people across the country and a lot of businesses deep down and big business owners and big-time CEOs will have his back here. They've just got to let him know what exactly they have to work with. And that remains unclear at this point. The grift is alive and well. If you can sue a municipality these days, you just go ahead and you do it. And apparently some people are going to support you no matter what. Not here, not on KCMO Talk Radio. And I know I've gotten more personal texts about this than I thought I would. And it's the story about this former part-time radio guy. His name is Fartsel, and he is suing Kansas City, Missouri, because he lost his weekend shift at KCUR, the NPR station in town, because he claims that after protesting with KC tenants, that commie group downtown, the mayor's then chief of staff called the KCUR bosses and said it doesn't look good to have your boy Fartsel protesting with Mark, stop laughing. Stop. I can't look at you when I'm doing the story.
I know. I'm sorry.
Gosh, your sophomoric humor gets me every time. Jeez. Apparently, per the lawsuit, Kansas City, Missouri chieftains told KCUR that it looks bad to have one of your part-time personalities protesting with KC tenants. And Fartsell then goes on to claim that he lost his part-time weekend shift at KCUR because of this conversation between his bosses and Kansas City leadership. It would seem to me that this individual should be suing, the radio station, not the city. But there's a lot more money in suing the government. Everybody's looking for their free payday from the government, John. That's what's going on here.
Protesting with KC tenants would damage KCUR's reputation?
Yeah.
Question mark, question mark,
Yes.
question mark?
Exactly. So Tony's Kansas City wrote about this, and the comments are hysterical. One person writes here, how is it possible for people to have a lower opinion of that money-grifting cat lady radio station anyway? And I'm like, that's an excellent point.
Number one with cat ladies.
Number one station in Kansas City for cat ladies. Woo!
This guy also used to be the announcer at the Sporting KC games, and magically his contract wasn't renewed when he was fighting against the yes vote last year
on
for
the
the Royals and Chiefs.
Yeah. Is he suing Sporting KC or no?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Once again, looking for a payday from the government. That's what they do.
Is paid to be a cheerleader, so him out front of a protest doesn't shock me. I'm like, is there news here?
No, I know, man. One of the other commenters on Tony's Kansas City writes here. This guy's name is Eddie. Pete, it wasn't written to me, but it's actually about us here. The commenter writes here, this is funny. KCUR thinks about a poor reflection on them, ? I wish KCUR was something I look forward to listening on the daily, but it's not. My favorite local is Pete Mundo on 95.7 FM. The guy is local, but on a higher level of thought and discussion. He even gets Mayor Q on, and he gets Mayor Q to support a new jail. Oh, that's very nice.
Such a nice man.
That's what we do here on KCMO. That's why we're kicking their butt. But if only they had that part-time weekend guy, they'd be cleaning our clocks, Old Fartsell. Even I was shocked by this yesterday. Good morning, 8:05. Happy Monday. Glad you're here on KCMO 95.7 FM. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was shocked when I had multiple listeners reach out to me over the weekend and say that they got what appeared to be a poll conducted by somebody or an organization connected to the Kansas City Royals about a North Kansas City ballpark, John.
Now, there's a distinct possibility that those were sent out over a year ago, and Kansas City, Missouri post office just got those delivered.
Except it was a text message.
Okay.
But
good.
If it was snail mail, you're right about that. That could have been the old USPS doing a bang-up job as my middle daughter, Chloe, still waits for a card from her grandparents.
Okay, so we've ruled out USPS.
Yeah.
All right.
And actually, you know what? Now that you got 3 kids, I keep mixing them up. It was actually Charlotte's birthday, so hopefully that'll be here by the time she turns 4. But I want to hear from you if you're someone in the Northland who may have gotten this text message poll over the weekend that was asking you about your interest and or enthusiasm about the Royals potentially looking at North Kansas City for a ballpark. Now, this was a story, if you're new to the show, 2 years ago. We were talking about this land in North Kansas City. The old bowling alley, it's just basically a straight shot south from Chapels off of Main Street there in North Kansas City. They would build a big ballpark there. There's dozens of acres to, build the entertainment district and the whole thing. But it just kind of fell flat. Didn't go anywhere. Then, of course, the Royals announced over a year ago that they were going to go to the Crossroads, and that basically killed any conversation around the Royals going up north. But with the Royals having this self-imposed deadline of late June, and that's because that's when the Star Bond offer ends from the state of Kansas, apparently somebody connected to them is at least re-engaging the possibility of North Kansas City. Because why else would you waste money on polling residents about the possibility of a ballpark? So it was like a 15 question poll that was being put out there by somebody tied to the Royals. And the questions were simple ones. what's your opinion on the Kansas City Royals? Would you support or oppose a proposal for the Royals to build a stadium downtown? If the Royals select North Kansas City in Clay County for a new stadium, would you support a half-cent sales tax? Also questions like, thinking about what you've seen, read, or heard, didn't the information make you more likely to support or less likely to support a new Royal Stadium in North Kansas City in Clay County? And it goes on and on and on from there. Also, it asks here, a new ballpark would include an entertainment district that would be paid for mostly by private funds. The ballpark district would include locally owned shops, restaurants, parks, and an auditorium for Clay County high school graduations. Knowing this, would you be more likely or less likely to support a new stadium for the Royals in North Kansas City? So all these polls, or all these questions in this poll that was sent out to Clay County residents over the weekend, obviously was trying to push people towards saying, you know what, I'm on board. I will vote for a half-cent sales tax over 40 years to potentially bring the Royals up to the Northland. That's the goal that they were trying to achieve with the poll. You can tell based on how the questions are being asked. Hey, we're going to have some high school graduations. Come on, don't you want to see the kids walk at the big fancy new auditorium up there in North KC, John?
Did you feel like there was any intimation in those questions about an entertainment district a la Star Bonds, a la something? They used that phrase, I thought maybe you said there, but they didn't really explain that that's how that would be paid for, though.
Well, I think what they're going for here, if I'm reading this right, is they're trying to make it sound like, hey, you help us with the stadium, and we'll build this big fancy entertainment district with our own monies.
Or that your half cent gets more than a ballpark. Is that it?
Yeah.
Kind of like that, maybe?
I think there's some of that going on here.
But there really isn't a Star Bonds type intimation there or something.
No.
Okay.
It's more just, hey, you give us your sales tax monies and we'll build you, some nice stuff. Yeah, we'll build you some nice stuff up here in the Northland. So it's amazing to me that we're apparently 2.5 months out from the deadline, and the Royals may be back to exploring North Kansas City as an option. That is insane. And it makes me wonder how close they actually are to having any kind of decision made. The whole point of the self-imposed deadline is a really simple one. They know that they lose some leverage after June 30th because that's when the Star Bond offer ends in Kansas. So they can't say to Missouri, hey, you give us something, or, say to Kansas City, give us something, or we're out of here. We're going to Kansas. They lose a lot of leverage on June 30th. So that's why they've apparently had this self-imposed deadline. But if we're now re-engaging the idea of Clay County, how can we possibly, just as an outside bystander in this whole thing, how can we possibly come to the conclusion that this team has any clue what it wants to do? I mean, Mayor Q says he's got $1 billion deal on the table to go down and look at Kansas City, Missouri. Of course, the thought is they would look at Washington Square Park. You've got radio hosts in this town who said that Spring Campus was a done deal. How'd that work out? Or how's that working out? Even if it maybe ends up there at some point, boy, we do our best to obviously beat our competition, but when they beat themselves, it really is thoroughly enjoyable when they just shoot themselves in the foot, like people have done in this community over the last couple of weeks on this platform. But I'm just sitting here saying, tell me how it makes any sense for this team to start adding potential options when they're 2 months out from a decision, supposedly. And, I've talked to people in the Northland recently over the last few weeks about this, just kind of keeping in touch, saying, hey, is anything popping up there? And no one really knows anything. No one's in the loop. So the other obvious conclusion I come to, and this is what Scott Fawn said from the Missouri Times on this show on Friday. He knows the inner workings of Jefferson City down there as well as anybody in the state. And he said about the Royals, and I want to make sure I have the quote here for you. I want to get it right. Scott Fawn, Friday morning here on KCMO Talk Radio. I think the Royals are getting the reputation of being hard to work with. We can all kind of see a path where the Chiefs are going. August election, renovate Arrowhead. What the Royals have found is that the Star Bonds are not a great way to fund a stadium. Because, yes, they would have run into the arms of the state of Kansas a long time ago if it made all the sense in the world. They're not doing it. So now the Royals are trying to figure out what to do. The other thing I wonder, and this is something I have heard in recent weeks out of Jeff City, is that the state may be more willing to cut a deal with the Royals if they look outside of Kansas City, Missouri proper, and they look up to the Northland. But if it's going to have to include a half-cent sales tax from the taxpayer in Clay County, that's a big ask. And I don't believe the enthusiasm would be there for another half-penny sales tax in Clay County unless they just want to stick it to folks south of the river, which I guess is entirely possible. And maybe that does motivate some people, and the pride of having a pro sports team in Clay County might be enough. I don't know. But I also don't think the Royals want to go back to the voters in any county right now after the shellacking that they took last year at the polls. I believe they got to figure out a way around the taxpayer. Because if they go back and they lose another vote, you want to talk about looking like a horse's rear end. That is a heck of a way to do it. Getting smoked in potentially 2 elections in 2 different counties? I'm not sure the egos involved can handle such a thing, John.
What are we, the Oakland A's?
Yeah. So you don't want to do that. And I believe they're trying to figure out a way around it. But if they're now doing polls in Clay County to try to get some idea as to what exactly the enthusiasm is up in Clay County for something like this, that tells me maybe we're back at square one. Now, let's go back a couple of years. There was a poll done in the Northland on this, and it was commissioned, actually, by a PAC tied to Mayor Lucas. And their goal was to basically convince the Royals that you can't go up north because you won't get the support. The way the questions read in the people who sent me their polls from over the weekend, this was more of a poll that was done to try to say, hey, come on, don't you want a ballpark up here? You can tell by the way the questions are asked. And I will share some of these screenshots here in the next couple of minutes on my X page at Pete Mundo, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, at Pete Mundo. You can see it there. That way you can get a feel for what these questions look like that are coming out to Clay County residents over the weekend. 913-408-7957 on KCMO Talk Radio. I see a lot of your texts coming in that many of you also got this over the weekend. I do not know who sent it out. I will be doing some more digging on this for you today and report back tomorrow. But, man, it does not signal to me that the people who are supposed to be making a decision soon are all that close to doing it. That is just my gut reaction right now. 913-408-7957. It's great to be back on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. I know many of you have been dying for it. We got Trump's physical. All right. It's actually pretty good, I will say, for a guy approaching 79 years old. Here we go. This came down yesterday to Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, from Captain Sean Barbarella, physician to the president. Subject, President Donald J. Trump's annual physical examination results. He took it on Friday, April the 11th. Results came out yesterday. Here are the vitals for the president. You ready?
Yep.
Age, 78 years and 10 months. Height, 75 inches. That is 6'3". Weight, 2 1/4, 225 pounds. Sorry, 224. He'd be mad if I said 225. Resting heart rate is 62 beats per minute. Man, woo! That's pretty good. Blood pressure, 128/74. Temperature, 98.6. Physical examination and diagnostic summary. Normal visual acuity, visual fields, and eye pressure. Dilated eye exam was normal. Examination of the head, ears, nose, and throat revealed no significant abnormalities. Hearing was normal. Neck, thyroid, and lymph nodes, normal. Lungs were clear on examination. Scan of his chest showed no abnormalities. Cardiac examination revealed a regular rate and rhythm with normal heart sounds. Cardiac testing that revealed no abnormalities. Heart function is normal. Healthy normal ejection fraction and blood flow to his extremities is unimpaired. I mean, I got all the numbers here in front of me, and I shared it last night on X as well. You can see it there. But I also said this. These are impressive numbers for 78, but until I know his 40-yard dash time, I just can't properly assess.
I was going to say, it's the copay on there. I will have Doge look into saving us some money. Let's just run the president's physical with the NFL Combine.
Yes.
We have Trump out there with the tight ends.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah, take his shirt off like these guys do.
Get him in some shorts running that 40, like he said.
Give him some skinny pants and the whole thing. So Trump talked about this over the weekend, and he gave a little teaser in terms of what this was going to sound like, and here's what he said.
Did they give you any suggestions or advice on anything you need to change up?
A little bit, but overall I think I felt I was in very good shape. Good heart, a good soul, very good soul. And I wanted to be a little different than Biden. I took a cognitive test. And I don't know what to tell you other than I got every answer right.
I love it. He goes, I got a good heart, good soul, very good soul. Sir, they don't measure your soul during a physical.
But he's in the top 10.
Yeah.
If they did,
If they did, though, if they a good soul, not just a good soul, a very good soul. And, I took a cognitive test. Biden would never do such a thing.
Maybe he was talking about his shoes.
Yeah.
Good souls. Very good souls there.
Oh, man. That is classic Donald Trump right there. And listen, it goes to show you that, yes, that age is just a number. Now, I'm still a proponent of an age maximum. Trump is great for going on 79. Biden at 79 was a corpse. Trump at 79 is like most 59-year-olds, it seems. That is true. But if you're going to have an age minimum in politics, there should be an age maximum. When I see Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein getting wheeled out, I mean, rest in peace, Dianne Feinstein, but recently McConnell getting wheeled out of the Capitol into a car, looking like he has no idea where he is or what he's doing. You've seen that from Pelosi in recent months. You saw it with Feinstein, who literally looked dead in a wheelchair before she was basically taken out of office and passed away, last year? We can't have this anymore. We can't have the geriatric class running the country. Even if Trump, yes, is obviously in fantastic physical and mental health, regardless of what you think of his policies, the guy's in great physical and mental health. Heck, he went to a UFC fight down in Miami on Saturday night. Did you see the entrance and the reaction from the crowd on Saturday night when he walked in? And he walked in with two of his grandkids. It was unreal. We will never see anything like this again in our lives, where Trump at 78 is getting this reaction from a mostly younger male crowd. And he walks in with two of his grandchildren like an all-time rock star on Saturday night. It was unbelievable. But it was afterwards, when he's on Air Force One, it's 2 a.m, and he's taking questions from media. 2 a.m? I can't tell you the last time I was up at 2 a.m, and it wasn't for changing a diaper or a bottle or something with the kids. I mean, I get the chills just thinking about being up at 2 a.m. Trump is 79, answering questions from the media on Air Force One at 2 a.m.
It's like 2 a.m. and we're doing this. You people requested. I'm always available, unlike Biden. Think Biden would do an interview at 2 a.m? He wouldn't do one at 9 a.m.
How did you enjoy the fight?
I thought it was great. I thought they were all great. Have you ever seen that before? Have you ever witnessed that?
No,
first time. Something, right?
Yeah.
First time.
Live.
Those are seriously tough people.
Not wrong, is he? I don't think so.
Such a cute soundbite.
And no matter what you think, he's sharp, but I'm still like, you know what? If being president is a minimum of 35, I'll max it out at 80, even if it were to hurt my people, my guy.